Hello, interwebs, and welcome to the Frak, this podcast. I am your producerial host, Jesse Gender, and I am joined as always by...
It's Vera. Give me that one more time.
Producerial? I don't think that's an actual word, but we'll go with it.
Okay.
I saw the word production, and I was like, all right, I'll do that. I'll do that as a word.
You can always tell the difference between times where you have come up with one in advance, and then the times where you're just randomly looking at your notes and just latch onto the first word you can. And
he was like, I can make that an adjective. Yeah.
Sometimes it almost works. Other times it's producerial.
Yeah. Kind of like this podcast. How are you, Vera?
I'm doing okay. Got my birthday in 2 days.
Yeah, you're getting older. You're gonna be dead soon.
Yeah, so are you, bitch.
Oh, yeah, but not as soon. Unless you kill me.
I was gonna say, you're assuming I have no say in that, and I think that is actually very much under my direct control.
All right, next time you come and visit, be very worried, be very afraid.
Oh, no. Mm-hmm. Not necessarily the next time, just at some point, eventually.
Yeah. Not every time, but anytime.
Yes.
I always love that.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, what are you doing for your birthday?
Not a lot.
Yeah.
Because I have my kiddo, so.
Yeah. Fair.
I have my kiddo, and most of my friends live a minimum hour and a half away from me, so.
Yeah, I have been sick and working on projects, so that's really about the extent of my stuff. I'm doing Long Away, the short film, and I'm assistant director on it, which sounds fun, and it is fun. It's a fun project, but unlike being a director where I'm making a lot of creative choices, the assistant director is I facilitate a lot of the stuff. I make the schedules and all of that jazz. So I'm just in spreadsheets and shit, and there's not as much creative input in there.
Well, I remember, because it's not worth getting into exactly what this thing was, but I was kind of involved in an independent film when I was 18. And one of the things that we were taught is okay, understand, assistant director isn't really a path to being a director. It's a path to being a producer. Yes. Because you're dealing with all the logistics and not having a lot of input on the creative stuff.
Yes. Which, kind of fits what I want. My ultimate goal would be to, do a job where it's, getting a, I don't know if you heard that, one of those alerts on the phone. Dream goal would be to, director producer on a TV show, where you have, a little bit of hand in the pie of the show running. You get to produce stuff, but you're focused on, producing the directors and directing a few things yourself. So assistant director is kind of a good path to that, to a degree, so... Yeah, but it is just a lot of getting a lot of stuff down and timing out. It's my stuff this past weekend was figuring out the schedule for when we'd have lunch and when we'd when we do the order of certain shots and things like that.
Yeah, so. That is, let's set aside the logistics of the fact that I'm not involved in the industry and I'm in my 40s and I live in Vermont and none of this, whatever, but just flatly assuming that it was ever a possibility. That is an end of production I would have zero interest in. That is the shit I would need other people to do for me.
It's fun though. I'm enjoying it because again, it's nice to do.
You're using the word fun, and yet earlier you used the word spreadsheets. So I feel like your opinion is invalidated by the evidence.
Wow! Don't talk to my fiance. She loves spreadsheets. She got very excited today about spreadsheets. Actually, without getting in too much about it because it's her job. She found some interesting money where she's a forensic accountant, listeners. So her job is finding money where people have tried to hide money. And she definitely found some people who were really trying to hide where their money was at earlier today for her job. So she was very excited about it. And that was all in spreadsheets.
You know what's funny is I found myself thinking about this a little while ago. White collar crime is a funny kind of crime because it is far, far less likely to be detected because it doesn't have the immediate evidence of it. You break into somebody's house, there's the broken window and shit's missing. But white collar crime, it's not immediately evident that a crime even happened. But once people start looking into it, it's actually way harder to get away with because
there's documentation. And
there is no way to erase the paper trail, especially in the digital age, of your white collar crimes. It's less likely someone will start following that path, but once they do, if they're any good, you're fucked.
Yeah, it's fascinating hearing what she does without saying any specific cases because that would get her in trouble. But like some of the stuff she's told me about how people have tried to hide stuff about like sending multiple reports. So like making things seem like it's the same money or it's different money when it's really the same money to try and cover up that they stole money elsewhere. It's kind of fascinating. It's like, oh, they did show the same thing twice so that they have an extra like $30,000 somewhere to hide the fact that they stole $30,000 illegitimately elsewhere. So it's very fascinating, that sort of stuff that she finds. So
yeah, and like there are obviously things you can do to try and cover for it. But again, anyone who knows what they're looking for, the evidence is right there. Like the path becomes very traceable.
Yeah, it's fascinating. And yeah, it can be fun. And it can be fun when you're an assistant director doing these things. So maybe you should be contrite about your saying that it's not fun and maybe do an act that shows your contrition to me.
I feel like you're trying to dom me right now, and it's adorable.
I was more just trying to transition.
Oh, you're so good at that, though.
Yeah, I'm very good at that. Yeah, see? And see, now you compliment me. Compliment me, the dominant one in this relationship.
Sweetheart.
Uh-huh.
If you think the sole measure of being dominant is that you get compliments, oh, I have so much still to instruct you on.
I don't need it. Be more contrite. And speaking of which, we're talking about act of contrition today on this podcast. Shut your face. However, before we get to that, I do want to, I'm going to try and figure out a good natural place to do comments. This probably isn't the good place to do it, but I'm going to do it here today. So I just wanted to point out a few comments that we got on our episode Water, which is 2 episodes back, I believe. So just some interesting things I heard from people. So from the Yum Yum podcast, they pointed out in the scene in that episode where Baltar's playing poker, I like the poker scene as a moment for Baltar to stop playing this nervous little man on the back foot and reconnect with his former cocky persona. It's also a nice way of him showing off that he is skilled at deception and that other people underestimate him, whether it be Starbuck in a game of cards or the command staff when it comes to his scientific brilliance. So... Which again, I kind of goes to what I liked about the scene, which is like got a moment where to show like, you know, he actually can be confident and suave.
I get the intent. I think part of the issue is I feel like the suave was conflicting with the card shark thing because like I'm watching him like be like the world's most inept pool hustler. Like, oh, I don't even know which end of the stick to hold. I'm totally not about to fleece you. Like that's how he came across. So like in the interest of coming across as suave, he came across as a bad card player in terms of like covering up the fact that he clearly had a good damn hand.
Yeah, to be fair, I get that. But I liked it because it just showed that Baltar, you know, for all of his shit, you can understand why he could get it, you know? Yeah. Another comment is from yeah, it's true. Scraper 8 says something I'm wondering is and this is from someone who has not seen the show, is watching it with us. So something I'm wondering if they're going to go with in regards to Head 6, is she going to be real in the sense that she's an independent consciousness, i.e. not Baltar's imaginings, but isn't something the Cylons did, or at least not on purpose? Could she be a version of 6 that is a real version of 6 that somehow came into being, but confined within Baltar's brain? I can't even begin to guess whether that would be good, bad, or anything else, but I think it would be an interesting thing nonetheless. Plus, it might play into the fate versus free will versus planned actions versus pure random chance and the creation and new life ideas they seem to be planting.
Interesting idea.
I'll leave that one to you because I'm not going to confirm either way.
I mean, like, potentially very jumbled. And again, just makes me think of Harvey because, like, Harvey very much was planted in Crichton. I'm talking about Farscape, folks. Harvey was very much planted in Crichton's head for a specific purpose, but developed his own personality and did stuff that wasn't really what he was expected or supposed to be doing.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, I'm not going to comment on it. So just the listeners know, I will sometimes read comments like that if you are watching along with us or are not spoiling. But if it's a spoiler one, I will read it personally, but I won't read it out because I don't want to spoil Vera.
Oh yeah, and I will also note: be careful about putting spoilers in the comments because the YouTube version of this podcast is going up on a channel that I manage and
yes,
I moderate the comments on. So
you can still do it. Just put like big spoilers so that Vera knows to like walk
put a
past
big
it. I'll read it. But
put a big spoiler warning or like just talk around it in code or something.
Yeah. Again, I will read all the comments as well. So like don't know that I'll read it, but Vera may miss it if you're doing a spoiler warning, which you should be doing. Last thing that I'll do here just to build up Vera's ego. This is one of many comments that were very nice to Vera that said, "I'm really loving Vera's takes here, and it's been long enough for me that I've forgotten the nuances our lovely hosts point out. I'm going to have to rewatch. P.S. Vera's spicy voice is fire." And this is from Lighthousean. So
thank you very much. I'm so glad that you appreciate it.
Well, yeah. And last one that I'll do, and then we'll jump into the actual recap here that I liked, because it's for this one I wanted to talk about. Battlestar Galactica, and this is from CM Mosher 8035. BSG, Battlestar Galactica, and Lost were pretty much airing at the same time, and one of the reasons I prefer Battlestar Galactica is it seemed better at dripping meaningful plot revelations. Again, this isn't going to spoil, it's just sort of commentary. I don't think Battlestar Galactica's ending was perfect, but I sort of feel that if you compare the two shows, Battlestar could be used one more season, whereas Lost went one season too many. So I'll just comment on this again, not without spoiling for Vera. I just wanted to call that out because I agree, and it was something interesting to me because I remember as a kid growing up, I watched both, like these were my two big shows at the time, Battlestar and Lost, when like Star Trek went off the air.
Yeah.
And I would generally agree with that, though I do like both shows. We'll get there when we get there, but I do actually like both shows' endings quite a lot. But I could reasonably get down with what you're saying on that. So, yeah. Anyways, let us get into our recap for Acts of Contrition. We start off the episode, and this is going to be a recurring thing that we'll sort of come back to throughout the episode, as like little flashes of Starbuck in the gravity well of a planet as her Viper is sort of crashing into it. So we sort of start in media res there.
Yeah, I'm just gonna rip the Band-Aid off on this.
Mm-hmm.
I don't understand why this is used as a framing device. I don't understand why we start here. I think it was a mistake.
Yeah, possibly. I don't have any strong feelings about it. I mean, I'm like, I guess it's sort of like, I think it adds it doesn't even really. I would say, yeah, I don't think it really does anything either way for me.
I think it adds absolutely nothing. And coming immediately out of it, since this is where we're starting, and it doesn't even just cut to the next scene. It does that kind of sound effect you get from TV shows to indicate like a flashback sometimes, like we're going to a relevant flashback, that whoosh thing. Yeah. Okay. And I immediately am thrown off because there was no caption saying how long ago. So I was immediately lost, didn't know how far back in time we just jumped for this goddamn flashback, and it deeply threw me off, and it took me about 3 scenes to even figure out when in time we were, because I could immediately tell like some of the stuff that was going to be referenced coming up with Zach, with Lee's brother and other stuff. So my immediate thought was we had flashed way back to like when Zach was still alive. And I actually thought that the thing that we're about to see was like how he died at first.
I did have that confusion as well, too, actually.
So the fact that we start with this, not only does this showing where the episode's gonna end, spoiler alert, it ends on a cliffhanger, but like starting where it's gonna end with her out of control in the upper atmosphere, like not only does it add nothing, it confused the hell out of me, because if you just started the episode with this scene, I would have known, oh, this is the now timeline.
Yeah. And it doesn't like add any tension to it, because like the one argument I would make is like, oh, if we know she's going to crash at some point, it kind of builds up the tension of like, when is that going to happen? What is it going to mean? But like when it does happen, it's kind of obvious that that's the moment that it's going to happen. There's no like tension at any point with the foreknowledge of this.
Yeah, I think using this as a framing device was a bad idea.
Yeah, I can agree with that.
It doesn't ruin the episode, but it does nothing helpful.
Yes, I agree. I can agree with that. But yeah, just to point out, like, I'm not going to mention it really every time it happens, but we do get this repeatedly coming back to throughout the episode.
I mean, like, hell, I'll just cover it. We're just going to watch her struggle in this. Eventually she ejects. She's falling into the atmosphere. That's it. Like, that is the entirety of what happens to this thing.
And we see it again at the end of the episode.
Yes,
so
and it's the exact full freaking thing. So, like, we get to the end, we just watch it again. It's not even, like, I don't understand.
It almost even feels like it's trying to fill out time, too.
I was just wondering, like, were they 30 seconds short on time?
Mm-hmm. It might have been. That's my only other read on it. But regardless, jumping into the actual episode, we start off with what appears to be a celebration moment where a pilot named Flat Top has just completed his 1,000th landing on the Galactica, which appears to be sort of a regular, like, once you're able to do that as a pilot, like, there's a big celebration for you and everything. Starbuck and Lee are preparing some level of, like, cake, or they have, like, a paint thing.
They're painting 1,000 on his helmet.
Yes. So they're bringing that. Adama also shows up, and it seems to be, like, ready to take part in the celebration. So it seems like it's a regular thing that the commander does. And
given what's about to happen, it's worth noting Starbuck and Lee are, like, in the quarters doing this, and that's where Adama shows up.
Yes.
So, like,
and he walks with them to.
Yeah,
where
the three of them are not at the hangar bay yet.
Mm-hmm.
And that's gonna matter in a minute.
Yes, because everyone else is over there celebrating in the Viper Bay. I will call it, there's, like, a fun little story where, like, Starbuck is telling a story of when Adama did his 1,000th landing that Lee hasn't heard, which is just, I think, an interesting moment to sort of showcase, like, Starbuck has a stronger, more personal connection to Adama than even Lee does, because, like, she knows his stories from, like, when he was younger that Lee doesn't even know.
I'm not sure I would say more personal. I would say more comfortable and more relaxed relationship, certainly.
Yeah, well, she knows, like, more personal stuff. Like, Lee, who is his son, doesn't know this story.
Yeah, but I'm just hesitant to say it means that she has a more personal connection, because, I mean, like,
I get what you're saying. Like,
Adama has a very buttoned-up relationship with his son, but it is a very personal connection that he has with him.
Open relationship, like, emotionally open, I guess, would be the better
I'm not
word.
even sure. It's, like, again, I'm coming back to relaxed. And, like, there is a relaxed fun that Lee definitely doesn't have. Like, there are aspects of Adama and Starbuck's relationship that are absolutely absent in his relationship with Lee. That much I'll agree on.
I would argue that open probably fits the definition. Because personal, I can see, like, he does have a personal relationship with Lee. It's a very tense one and not very vulnerable one, but it is a personal one that he wouldn't have with anyone else. But I would say he is much more open with Starbuck than he is with any character that we've seen on the show so far.
Yeah, sure.
In this episode, especially in this episode, as we'll get to.
Yeah, I'll go with that.
But anyways, that's a little evidence of that, because she knows that story that she's telling. But while they're celebrating Flat Top's 1,000th landing in the hangar bay, and they're sort of, like, wheeling him around in a thing, a comm drone slips from its rack. There's sort of like a loose strap, falls, knocks over, and blows up, killing what we will later learn 13 pilots and injuring 7 more.
This is so fucking stupid. Like, I know, like, this is a tragedy, and this is, like, this sort of embodiment of the random happenstance that can happen even when they aren't being attacked by the Cylons, and, like, that will later get identified, like, it's because the equipment is aging, like, the safety strap broke, and, like, I understand all the logistics of why this is happening, and plus it's gonna, like, set up this whole thing where they have more Vipers than they have pilots, so they need to train a pilot. So, like, I get why this is happening, but in the moment, I'm watching this weapon on this rack just start to fall, and I'm going, no, come on. And then it falls, and it doesn't even fall and blow up. It falls, and for some reason, because whoever designed the safety measures on these things was a fucking idiot, for some reason, the slight impact of hitting the floor ignites its rocket, and then it shoots itself directly at the pilot celebrating. And I'm sorry, I laughed. This is dumb ways to die. So many dumb ways to die.
I can see you saying that. Actually, my issue is not that, and I'm actually surprised, because my issue, I feel like, is one that you usually articulate, in that it feels weirdly cruel to like, this is the first time, and usually I don't mind it as I'm not as sensitive to that sort of thing as you are, but like, this is a show that has been very depressing almost front to back, and that is like the tone of the show. And this is like the one time we've seen like, hey, look, some joy, and then it's instantly like, nah, 13 people are dead now. It felt a little cruel in the sense that like this is the closest to happy moment this show has ever gotten. We've not gotten any other ones. You know what I mean?
I'm not going to disagree with you. I think the reason it didn't trip that for me was, first of all, like because I was trying to figure out where the hell in time we even were, which like how happy they are at the start of this was another thing that threw me off. Like it seemed weird to me that with everything going on, they were this joyous. Like I get it. Like they're taking happiness where they can and they're not going to miss the opportunity. I get all that. But again, just the mood threw me off for even figuring out where the hell in time we were. But I think the reason this didn't trip my needless cruelty thing is because these aren't people. Like that, like my general go-to with needless cruelty is one of two things. Either something that is just way more gruesome than it need be, which this isn't, it's over pretty quick. And two, characterizing somebody just enough to try and make it hurt. So that's what they did with whatever the fuck that kid's name was. Like
the kid on the ship in the miniseries that gets blown up.
Like that's why I hate that shit, because it's like, oh, let's establish, oh, she's waiting to see her father,
a mom and dad,
who's probably already dead and she doesn't know it. Isn't that already tragic? Oh, she doesn't know. Like that's the kind of thing I'm like, fuck off. This is a hangar full of people I don't know. So,
but his name is Flat Top, and that's funny.
But he's real flat now.
I get why it doesn't trip your cruelty thing. For me, I will just say it points out to me as like, I do like moments of like levity and humanity in shows that are this dark, and this wouldn't like instantly cutting from a happy moment to a really sad moment wouldn't have bothered, and I'm not like supremely bothered by it. But it's like, it does bother me a little bit in the sense that like we haven't gotten any of these elsewhere, even in small ways. So it's like, this is just so, it's like, this is so joyous and then such a come down that it's such a dichotomy break for me that it reads like kind of forced and a little bit like hand of the author cruel to me. You know what I mean?
It does. Now that I'm actually stopping and thinking about it and like getting over how stupid it is, because like again, that's the other thing. It's too stupid for me to get upset. But like if I set that aside, it does have that kind of, the universe is punishing you for
having happiness,
for the sin of joy. And I do generally not like that. And I think it's just
like, if it wasn't so
the scene
joyous,
was so ridiculous that
because we've had moments where like characters seem to be enjoying themselves, but this is like such a moment of joy that it's, and then such a come down that you can clearly see the hand of the author being, let's give them the happiest moment that they've had on the show, and then we'll just nail them with how awful it is. You know what I mean? Like I get that vibe from it, as opposed to like being more grounded.
Little much.
Yeah. So, anyways, moving on, we cut back from the opening credits, and we learned basically that the strap failed because it was just like normal wear and tear, things like that. Chief Tyrrell is kind of seemingly upset by it because he says, I've never had deaths on my hangar, accidents, but never deaths. And then we cut to Lee sort of giving speech as CAG, talking about the services and that there'll be an investigation. And he basically seems like also kind of in shock, as sort of the rest of the pilots are, sort of saying, can anything make this better? I don't know, which is also when Adama comes in. So,
yep.
We get a flashback to when Adama first met Starbuck after Zach's death, at the funeral services. So we just get a little flashback of that, like just a quick scene. It's not, we'll come back to these scenes later on, but it's just sort of a quick flash.
There's a lot of let's establish this flashback scene, but we're not going to let it play out yet. We're going to cut back to it. And like, there's one scene in particular where I'm like, fucking stop.
I know. Yeah. Oh God, it got me. Yeah, that one. I know exactly that one. A pain in the ass to make notes on too. But yeah, Adama then speaks to the pilots in the present day, saying this is a hard day. There'll be more to come. Remember your self-esteem, your self-respect, and self-worth. You're the guardians of the fleet. They need to know that they can count on you. So kind of like a yay, you're still here sort of thing.
Suck it up, assholes.
Yeah, right. He's not that callous, but he's just
no,
sort of
he's
like,
not.
yeah,
But
yeah. We then go to the funeral services for the pilots that died in the present day.
And this was where I was finally certain that this was happening now, because the priest or whatever she is delivering eulogy was the same one who swore in the president. And that would, so it was this far into the episode before I was 100% sure when this even was.
Yes. So yeah, that priest will be coming back several times in the show. But yeah, she is giving the eulogy, and we intercut this with Zach's funeral. So like Lee in the present day, Lee sort of like puts a flag on the grave, and then we cut back to the past where that's sort of happening at Zach's funeral, and Adama holds Starbuck's hand at the funeral. It sort of reaches out and holds her hand because they're both grieving. Yep. So we also get a flash of Starbuck and Zach having sex too. So we have that also flashed in there as well.
We'll be doing that one a lot.
Yeah.
So I'm going to make this note about Zach now, because we have technically seen him before. He's in that picture that Starbuck has up on the inside of her locker, but like we get a much clearer like picture of just him at the funeral, and we're going to see him in some scenes. So I just wrote down, we have Chris Pine at home.
yeah, definitely giving that vibe, honestly. He doesn't even really look like Edward James Olmos or Jamie Bamber, who plays Lee. Like, it's
not
kind of
exceptionally, no.
Yeah. Anyways, that's very funny. But yes, so we get that funeral, but then we cut to a scene where Starbuck, again, this is in the present day, Starbuck and Adama are having a drink. And he basically says, we need to start training new pilots. And Starbuck sort of pushes back, saying, I don't know if I'm the right person. And she sort of said, like, couldn't you find anyone else in the fleet? There's 50,000 people out there. And he says, yes, there's 2 civilian flight instructors, but I need someone who can do combat tactics. And he sort of like cuts through the bullshit and says, this is about Zach, isn't it? And he says, it's not your fault. You had nothing to do with what happened. And he said, and just to really rub the salt in the wound, he says, Zach passed basic flight. He was trained and knew what he knew what he was doing. And then, of course, we get a flashback to the miniseries where Starbucks admitted to Lee that he didn't actually pass basic flight, and that she passed him anyways because she had a thing for him.
Yeah. I actually really like that you use the phrase Adama cuts through the bullshit, because I wrote down that exact phrase because that's one of the things I really like about him is that he doesn't. And it's true of whether he's talking to the president, where he won't really play politics that much, or at least the game of it, or whether he's talking to Starbucks. He's just like, okay, can we actually talk about what this is actually about?
And he's done it.
Scrap all this other stuff and just talk about the thing. Or in the case where he is not prepared to do so, he will just shut it down and move on. But he doesn't do the cover story.
Yeah. Yeah, he's very straightforward in that way. But I also like the nuances of it, because, we had a few episodes ago him cutting through the bullshit with Baltar, and it's just sort of like, doctor, just say it, whatever. Whereas here, he's still doing that, like saying, let's just get to the heart of the matter, essentially, but there is a tenderness that he has towards Starbuck in bringing it up. So there's like, it comes down to Edward James almost, I think, performing that really well.
Well, yeah, when he did it with Baltar, it was like, stop running me around, dipshit. And here it's like, I know you're good for this job. So like while it is a similar action, the intent behind it is different, and he plays that well. Yeah,
he does indeed. He says, you did your job to your best ability. That's all I can ask. We need new pilots. And Starbuck says, well, I can do them. I can do that. And again, just rubbing salt in the wound without knowing it. Adama says, give them the attention and professionalism you gave my son. It's the show really kind of like really just being like, yeah, let's rub it in and make Starbuck feel real bad. You know what I mean?
I know writers use subtext and they're all cowards.
Exactly.
It is kind of that episode.
Yeah, it's just very on the nose. Like, we praised Edward James almost. I also like Katie Sackhoff's Katie Sackhoff's like acting here too, when like she goes into a hug and you can see like the transition on her face, like what she's showing Adama, what she sort of actually feels. So like it's played well, but the writing is like very like, oh yeah, we're gonna rub it in, make her feel real rough. You know
Oh
what I mean?
yeah, and somehow the writing's gonna get even clunkier a little bit later.
We cut to Starbucks playing poker with Baltar, Gata, Boomer, and Crashdown. We continually get flashbacks to Starbuck having sex with Zach, so she's clearly distracted while she's playing poker.
Yeah, this is where I wrote down just fucking stop. Because, like, first of all, needless. Absolutely needless. And, like, it's one of those scenes where if you stop and think about it for even a second and ignore the storytelling nature of this and just think about what the people in the room are actually seeing, they are seeing her clearly zoned out, dragging her own fingers across her lips seductively because in her head she's remembering Zach brushing his fingers across her lips. And like, I'm sorry, that must be a real awkward damn room to be in right now. And she's just not paying attention to this game and has a half O face on going like, God damn it, fucking stop.
Yeah. The other thing we do get here is, so basically the long and short is that she's distracted. She ends up walking away from the poker thing, much to everyone's consternation. But one thing that does get brought up during the conversation while she's doing her O-face is Crashdown asks Baltar and Gata about how their Cylon detector is doing. And they both kind of deny it. Gata says, I wouldn't be able to talk about it. But clearly it just meant to show, like, there's rumors in the fleet about the Cylon detector.
The show's leaning on that notion a little heavily. Like, oh, I hear word, I hear rumors. Like, okay, these rumors are starting to get so specific that I'm starting to think, like, this show better identify a leak. Because I was willing to let go. Because I honestly thought this before when I think it was Crashdown saying to Boomer, like, did you hear that Cylons can look like us now? I was, even at the time, and I didn't say anything, not even on the podcast, but part of my brain was like, isn't it convenient that got out? But I let that go because I'm like, the paranoia is going to serve the story. So I'll let that go. But now we're on like, oh, now there's a rumor that you two are specifically you two, who are in fact the ones doing it, are working on a Cylon detector together. I'm like, okay, what is the fucking origin for these rumors? Because it's starting to be a really clumsy device. And if it doesn't ever get addressed where the hell this is coming from, then it's lazy writing, which is a charge I am loath to levy at anybody. But if we never figure out where the hell these are coming from and how they are spreading as quickly as they are, then it's lazy writing.
This one in specific, I have no idea where it came from, at least as much as I'll say right now without doing spoiler stuff. But the other one with Boomer, Crashdown does identify that he heard that rumor because they left what's-his-face on the station at the end of the miniseries. Like, I heard we left that guy there, which is something that
there
people
is at
would
least
have.
some origin to that, but it still sticks in my head as like the conversation started with, oh, did you hear the word that blah? It's still being presented in this same way. And it's like, stop doing that, man. That's a crutch.
Well, anyways, in the flashback, as Starbuck leaves, we see Zach saying to Starbuck, he doesn't want any special treatment. And Starbuck saying to him, I'm not going to send you up into the Vipers if you don't have the chops.
So the moral of the story here, children who are listening, is that you don't fuck your teachers. And teachers don't fuck your students. Because even if everybody is consenting adults, this is a power dynamic that doesn't work.
Yeah. Yep. And it does, to be fair, at least the show is making that clear, is it's not good. So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But like again, I don't know.
It's not doing the Babylon 5 thing where it's like, ooh, romantic.
Yeah. Thank goodness. Oh, Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
But
it's pretty bad. Yeah.
But like, it does kind of bother me that like, and I know like he's got to be like soft on her because they build a close relationship or whatever. But like the fact that Adama, when he meets her, and I get it. She's in mourning too, but like, at no point has he got to go. Kind of messed up. You were fucking your student, actually. I'm glad it was real, and he loved you, and you cared about each other. But what the fuck, lady?
I'm willing to let it go because they're both in mourning, and like he recognizes the feelings that they had for each other, and obviously a big revelation that happens later on too. So I think it's just sort of like he's not going to bring it up in the sense that's like, well, I have her as a surrogate daughter now, sort of thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I get that. It's just I don't know. I wasn't especially engaged in this episode, so I kept having thoughts that were like they were thoughts that like don't properly apply because I understand why this isn't the case, but
it's touching. It's grazing on these things that you don't like. Yeah.
Well, sort of like okay. I know the real reason that Starbuck is like all kind of like nervous about the idea of taking on students. But my brain still went, look, all you have to do is not fuck any of your students and it'll be fine. You're not going to get in the same situation again, which is a ridiculous, frivolous criticism that I don't have sincerely, but I have the thought of because I'm not fully engaged with this episode.
Mm-hmm.
It's the kind of snarky thought that happens when you're not fully there.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha. All right. Well, moving on, we do jump to Silent Occupied Caprica, where Boomer and Hilo trace down the military-coded signal to a restaurant where they find a hidden nuclear shelter full of supplies and a disaster beacon that was sending out the military signal. So it wasn't actually a military signal. It was just leading them to this place. And they sort of ruminate on the idea of some poor bastard planned all this out, had this nuclear bunker, and still didn't survive, essentially. Like, what happened to him, they say. And sort of said, like, we got all this and it still didn't help you.
I mean, like, the answer to what happened to him is pretty simple. The bombs fell and he didn't have enough of a heads up. Like, you don't get that much notice, actually, when the bombs drop. Crazy thought.
Yeah, I know. But it is an interesting sort of thing. It's like, yeah, you can have all the plans, best laid plans of mice and Cylons, I guess. You know? It
is kind of interesting to me that something like this would even exist, though. Because, like, for how long the Cylon War is supposed to have been done, it's supposed to have been over and finished. Because, like, at this point, to make the parallel with our own history, the parallel would be the Cold War. And yes, during the Cold War, people absolutely built bunkers like this. I can't imagine the market for new ones of those has been great since the end of the Cold War. Like,
there's still some preppers.
You get your doomsday preppers, but that's more about having the supplies, not necessarily building a bunker. You know what I mean?
Some preppers do bunkers. Like, I've seen, there's been documentaries on people who like will make bunkers. You know, I certainly would say it's less common than the Cold War, but it does happen.
I know, but then again, the other thing is that like it tends to happen with people out in the middle of nowhere in the woods. Whereas this is in a restaurant in the middle of downtown, which is an interesting place to try and build a bunker.
Yeah, that's fair. I could totally understand that. The one thing that I sort of noted that was fascinating is we do get they're outside the restaurant, or in the restaurant in the bunker, and we cut to outside the restaurant, and it's meant to allude to the fact that the Cylons are watching them, but like a 6 walks by the restaurant kind of sexily stroking the window or whatever.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what a weird thing to do. Like, number one, what if like Hilo like steps up and like, oh shit, there's a 6 right there. You know what I mean? Like it's just I get it. It's like, ooh, ambiance, but it was just such a weird moment.
Again, it's one of those things, a bit like the Starbuck thing, because they knew they were intercutting with the sex scene. So, like, her dragging her finger across her own bottom lip.
It's like anyone sees that out of context.
Yeah, it's that same thing. It's like, oh, this makes for a good shot. Yeah, but if you stop and think for even 2 seconds what it would look like, you're wondering, why are you doing that? What is wrong with you? What are you accomplishing?
Yeah, it's just meant to. It's a thing for the audience to be like, "Ooh, they're being watched," but it makes no sense.
You know what I like to imagine? Further down the block, there's an errand door waiting for her, and she's like,
"Can you hurry the fuck up?"
Real slow and dragging her hand across it, and he's looking at her like, "What the fuck are you doing? What the hell was that?
Are you getting off on on just like appearing? Like, I wonder if that she's like doing that every place that they stop at. Like everywhere they stop
already.
She's like just dragging sexily her finger across every spot that they go to. Yeah.
It's like, oh, but if they're in there, that's real cool what I just did. Nobody saw you. Will you stop, please?
And in fact, if people do see you, it'll ruin everything. So what the fuck? But there's a camera right there. I just need to vogue for the camera. Anyways,
don't acknowledge the fourth wall.
We then cut to President Laura Roslin getting her checkup from Doc Cottle, my favorite crusty doctor.
He sure is a crusty old doctor. He
is.
Buy gum.
He is like a stereotypical crusty doctor, but he is the crustiest, and I love it. I legitimately love Doc Cottle for just him being like, he is just that entire stereotype, and I love it. He's like if Dr. McCoy like just stuck around for 30 years and didn't give a shit anymore.
Did McCoy ever give a shit?
He pretended he didn't, but he really cared, you know. This is Cottle where he's like, all right, fuck it. I'm going to smoke it. Fuck off. But anyways.
This is McCoy when he's stationed on a ship where he doesn't have any friends.
Yeah, exactly. That was exactly what I was getting at. He's like, I don't give a shit about anybody. I'm just here now. Spock and Kirk have gone and fucked each other, and I'm just sort of left out of the polycule at this point. So, anyways, yeah, they have a conversation. He smokes a cigarette, and Rosalind's like, do you mind? He's like, I don't, actually. Like, he doesn't give a fuck. But yeah, he basically tells her, like, yes, it is too late to operate, and they have to do, essentially their version of chemotherapy. They call it Diloxin, but we get the vibe that it is some version of chemotherapy. And Roslin says that she wants to explore some form of alternative treatment, and Cottle thinks at first she means prayer, but she actually says, no, I want Kamala extract.
And I love his response. Oh, you're one of those.
Yeah.
Which I imagine is what goes through the head of every doctor who gives a cancer diagnosis and gets asked about, you know, some weird herb that's being hawked by Dr. Oz at the moment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's kind of that exact vibe. But yeah, he's sort of saying like it's false hope. It's anecdotal. But she pushes it, and he says he will look and see if anyone has a secret hoard of Kamala extract on the fleet. But as he leaves, he does say, but seriously though, I would consider prayer. Yeah,
and like they give Roslin a little like a reason, because she says like she saw her mother go through being on that, and like it's not that I don't buy that, but I'm kind of annoyed that she didn't make what I would think is the far more relevant point, which is she needs to appear healthy for the sake of appearances while holding this position. Mm-hmm. And if she starts losing her hair and a bunch of weight and looking really sickly, no one's going to be comforted by her in the position of president. And I kind of wish somebody would have said that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, it doesn't get brought up. But yeah, that is the better reasoning, frankly.
Yeah. And like, I understand that's not as much an emotional reason, and many people make these decisions for more emotional reasons. So the mother makes more sense there. But like, this is still valid. I think would be a good reinforcing point. And honestly, you could even make it where like, that's more the reason she gives, but then she mentions her mother, you realize it's much more fear of going through what she saw, but she has this other cover reason that's still valid. But no, it's just not there at all, which is odd to me.
Yeah. Which is especially considering it was put forward in a slightly different way last episode, where she told Lee and she said, I have to put up appearances and can't tell anybody, sort of thing. So it was there, but it's not brought up here.
Yeah, it would have been a natural extension of it being brought up at the end of the last episode, but it's just not there. I don't know.
Yep. Well, anyways, we cut to Starbuck talking to Lee and complaining about the recruits they got, and he said that these are the most qualified pilots that they found. At least they have some level of training and being in a cockpit and everything like that. And diamonds in the rough, he calls them, but she doesn't seem so. She seems very much about like, no, these aren't good enough. She goes out to speak to all of them, and she is very much like the bad cop all the way. She's like, you may refer to me as God. He's being super hard on them, and I'm putting in a cockpit today. This is the Viper Mark II. Don't think you've ever been in one of these things, because you haven't. And, one guy says, you're laying it on a little thick. And she goes over to him and is like, God speaks, you listen. And if you had actually listening, you wouldn't have washed out. And she gives him the nickname Hot Dog, which will be his call sign going forward. So, Hot Dog. Gotta enjoy Hot Dog. He'll be a recurring character, and I have fun with Hot Dog.
I figured he would, and like his buddy who he thought he was being all sneaky, whispering because like you said, he said lay on, but he didn't intend for her to hear that. He like leans over and whispers to his friends, who's gonna end up getting the call sign Chuckles. Which,
yeah.
I like.
The two, I think Chuckle sticks around too, but Hot Dog and Cat are the two big ones from this episode that stick around. So
I mean, I figured that out of the, I don't know, like 7 or 8 that there are, these 3 are the only ones we get names for. So.
But speaking of, Cat we cut to Starbuck doing a session with Cat in the Viper. Cat tries to land but goes in too hard, and so has to take back off, and she like scuffs the bottom of the landing bay. Then we cut immediately back to her basically washing them out. It's like, you can't make it, and it's criminal to let you near a Viper again, so you're done.
Like I give a little bit of credit. It's not like she walks in the room and immediately washes them out. She is berating them in the way that you might expect. But then one of them says, you got to give us a break. This is our first day. And that's when she kind of snaps and goes, no, it's your last day. You're all finished.
Yes. So, but it does there's a vibe of like her kind of like that's the goal she wants.
Oh yeah. She was looking for a reason to, well, not necessarily to wash them out, to not have to do this job, but which, because Adama won't let her not do the job, that means washing them out.
Yeah. Yes. We then cut to Lee sort of reprimanding Starbuck. He's like, you can't wash them out on your first day. We can't even maintain a cap, which is sort of like, I'm assuming is just a schedule, like a regular rotation. And she says, well, find a new group of candidates. And he's like, well, the next group of candidates haven't even been in a cockpit. We'd have to start with basic flight. And he sort of says, this is not a request. But then Starbuck reiterates, my word is scripture on this. I will not pass another student who isn't ready. And then Lee sort of points out, so that's what it's about. It's about Zach. And she gets very heated up in his face.
Dude, get with the program. What did you think it was about?
Yeah, she gets very much up in his face, and they have a tense moment. So yeah. Which then brings Lee to go to see Adama. And Adama seems to be very much on Starbuck's side. It's like, well, if she says they can't cut it, they can't cut it. And Lee sort of says her personal feelings are clouding her judgment. And Adama's like, what are those feelings? He's like, about Zach. And Adama says, well, I talked to her about Zach. And Lee sort of seems surprised by this. Because he assumes, it's very clear Lee assumes that, Starbuck had told Adama from Adama's phrasing, he thinks Starbuck had told Adama that she passed Zach from basic flight. And he sort of lets that slip accidentally because he thinks that's what they were both talking about. And he says, okay, if I think you should talk to her, but she definitely has some feelings she needs to work out about it. Even though, you'll think she does her job. But then Adama sort of says, wait, what do you mean? What guilt would she have over it? And Lee sort of says, oop, shit, it's not my place to say, you'll have to ask her. So he just lets slip too much.
This is fucking freaking rom-com bullshit. This is like, he went and saw his ex today, and then they don't ask the follow-up question, and they assume they're back with their ex or whatever. This is that level of
It doesn't work as bad for me. I kind of get it, but yeah, it is playing on that misunderstanding thing that I don't like.
It's not that it's unbelievable as an exchange, but it's just such a trite way to do it, and it is just such a bare bones basic, whoopsie, I thought you already knew. For fuck's sake, really? And that's the best way you could think of to broach this?
Yeah, I agree with that. Because, it doesn't necessarily bother me as a scene. It's like, it's fine, but it's not exactly original. So, it doesn't rub me as badly, though. We do get another Zach and Starbuck flashback where Starbuck does pass Zach. He says, you passed by the skin of your teeth, Zach. So we don't clearly know that she's lying to him there. But we do get that little flashback of her telling him. And then... can we also take a hot second
to acknowledge the fact that not only did Starbuck passing him when he failed, like, potentially be the reason he died, but also, like, that's kind of an asshole thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
Like, to make somebody think that they can do a thing that they can't do. Like, even beyond the safety measure, that's kind of a shit thing to do to somebody that you care about.
Yeah. I get not wanting to let them down. That's more of a you can't be honest with them sort of thing.
Yeah, it speaks to some actual problems in the relationship. You care more about preserving his feelings than being honest with him.
It's interesting. It's making me think of. So I'm doing a lot of research on Gene Roddenberry for a project that I can't say. You know, Vera, but I can't.
I know.
Say
Yeah, I know this.
Yeah. But I am doing a lot of research on him, and one thing I see coming up in a few books, and it's interesting to see how it's framed, is one of the things that, like, the first time I read one biography on him, there was a biographer said, like, Gene Roddenberry never liked to tell people bad news. So, like, if someone asked for, like, a pay raise, he would say, I'll think about it, and then tell someone else to say that. And it's, like, framed as, like, this nice thing in that version of the book, because the biographer clearly, like, is fond of him. I actually low-key think they might have been having sex. That's my theory on that particular biographer, but that's a different conversation. Anyways, it's clearly framed that way, but I went and I read it. I'm like, no, that's some bullshit. Like, have the backbone to tell people that they can't get fired. And then another biographer said the same thing that I actually wrote before the other one. That biographer had the same opinion as me. It's like, no, that's a shit thing to do that he would constantly do all the time. So it's like, it's definitely a personality trait, but it's just interesting how it's framed in different ways.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So just, yeah, if you can't tell people, like, to their face, like, shit that they should know, like, I get the level of emotional being like, I don't want to tell them and make them feel bad, but also, like, especially if you're in a position of power, like she is in, and Gene Roddenberry was also in for many people, you should just say it. Just have a backbone about it.
Yeah. Like, that's part of the responsibility of being in a position of authority.
To be trusted to do that.
Yeah.
Yep. Which is why you don't sleep with your bosses.
Yeah. One of many reasons.
Unless you're Ferengi, because one of the Ferengi rules of acquisition is always sleep with the boss. Which is funny, considering that all Ferengi bosses are men. It's a very patriarchal society. Don't put those two things together. Anyways, oh, that's definitely something I'm going to be talking about in different things. Anyways, oh, I haven't done that in a while. We then cut to Adama speaking to Starbuck, and did you just give me? She gave me a click for that, you listeners. You jerk! Why can't I do?
Because
don't give me another click.
Because I used to do it before, and we're keeping up with it.
Consistency. I see how it is. Who knew you'd be so predictable, Vera? Gave me another one. Anyways,
that was just for being a bitch.
Yeah, I try. Anyways, we cut to the scene with Adama and Starbuck talking to each other, and Adama sort of calls out what Lee said. He says, you washed the nuggets out because you felt some guilt. What are your personal feelings? And Starbuck says, that's not the case. And Adama says, okay, I trust you. But I would like to ask you directly, what are you feeling guilty about for something he's acted? And she tries to deny and says, you'll have to ask Lee. And Adama again cuts through the bullshit and says, I love you like a daughter. I don't deserve that. And then she eventually comes forward. She says, Zach failed basic flight. He had no feel for flying. He busted 3 of the test maneuvers, and I should have flunked him, but I didn't. Your son didn't have the chops to fly a Viper, and it killed him. There's a second half to the scene, but we cut to a flashback here, so I'll pause right there. So,
Adama's face. Every time they cut back to him while she's talking, Edward James Olmos is doing so much with so much restraint, and like restraint is part of what is going on with the character. Like his mouth gets so thin, and there's so, like, you can tell.
Oh, it's so good.
He's holding back so much. Like, oh god damn. I would have a panic attack being in the room with that man looking like that. Jesus. Yeah,
I mean, well, let's just continue here because there's a flashback. We can talk about that. Well, the flashback scene, because I do want to talk about this moment, but the flashback scene is Adama after their funeral with Zach, sort of saying, he asked me to come to flight school. He said he was hinting at something, a surprise about you. Starbuck seemed a little bit hesitant, but Adama guesses that you were engaged. And then we cut back to the present, and Adama says to Starbuck, you passed him because you were engaged. Again, great face here. I also really want to call out, too, Katie Sackhoff's performance. I think she was really good, too, where she says, I made a mistake. I was so in love with him, and I let that get in the way of my job. He wanted it so much, and I didn't want to be the one who crushed him. And I really like her performance here, because Adama's response, again, doing that straight face, he says, reinstate the trainees to flight status, do your job, and walk out of this cabin while you still can. And like she has a moment where she like tries to try to connect to them, and he's like, get out of the cabin while you still can. And she leaves, and she like does the whole like hitting your own head sort of thing, like clearly beating herself up quite literally, which fits her character, like the like physical intensity of her character very well. I just think all around, like everything to do with the rest of this episode, I felt this scene on many levels.
This scene is the standout scene of the episode, quite easily.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is phenomenally done on both of their parts. Despite the rest of the episode being kind of lackluster, this lands, and it's the thing that should land. If there was anything that needed to land in this episode, it's this bit.
Yeah,
so.
If only one part of the episode was going to work, this is the part that needed to work. So
yes, it does. We then cut back to Starbucks talking to the trainees. She says, you're all returned to flight status. And she's sort of is very clearly, it's like the way she says it, she's like, I'm going to do this without personal feelings. I'm going to do my job. And it's just sort of like, I feel like the other students with her saying that would probably be like, there's a whole story we missed here. Like it gave that vibe of like she was reading a script and it's like, oh man, we missed a thing. But yeah.
Yeah, but our teacher has issues. Okay.
Yeah, there's some shit going down that we weren't privy to here. But as she leaves, Cat, Chuckles, and Hot Dog all celebrate. We then cut to Starbuck teaching Chuckles, Cat, and Hot Dog out in space in a Viper run. She actually seems to be doing a good job teaching. She's saying, Hot Dog, you left your leader, never leave your leader, and they like actually seems to be like doing a good job. Ty even makes note of it because he's listening. He and Adama are listening in on the radio. She's out there. He's like, what's gotten into Starbuck? She actually sounds like a real instructor for a change. She may make pilots of those instructors yet. And Lee sort of sees his father. So there's like a moment where Lee kind of like recognizes that Adama's had the conversation with her.
Mm-hmm. They had the talk. But then at that moment, they get multiple Cylon contacts, which they call all of the pilots home. And Starbuck, while they're sort of racing away, and I think there's 8 Cylon raiders, she turns to go back and face them all one-on-one and kind of like, I don't necessarily want to say a suicide run because it doesn't seem like she's overtly suicidal, but definitely sort of taking a lot more risks than she should with that. But trying it didn't strike me as an overtly reckless thing because I think like she's making the call that these other 3 aren't going to get back unless I slow these things down. So like it's reasonable. Yeah. Yeah, it is a sacrifice play that she's doing. She is putting herself in far more danger than she would be otherwise. But I really did get the impression it was to protect them rather than any kind of like death wish or anything like that. And I should be clear about it. Yeah, it was not like it certainly, I don't think she thinks too highly of herself, but it's not a suicidal thing. It is a sort of not necessarily reckless. It's a thought out thing, but it is sort of like putting yourself in more danger than necessarily she would in other contexts. Yeah. Let me just note here. Mm-hmm. Because I've noted it before, and I think I'm going to lock this criticism in. The space dogfighting, it's not good in this show. I like it. I don't know. It's not good. Like, this is a situation I should love. You have one pilot going against 8. I want to see some fancy flying. I want to see, like, all we see is, like, her going them head on and occasionally bobbing to the left or to the right. And somehow she blows up a whole bunch of them. Like, it's real boring. I don't get a sense of the geography. There's no interesting maneuvers. With a fraction of this thing's budget and almost 8 years behind on technology, Babylon 5 did space dogfights better than this. I will point out that we also had similar issues with early Babylon 5. And this is early Battlestar Galactica. I seem to recall it getting better after this. I will hold your criticism, but I do think they get better, but we'll see. For right now, the dogfights suck.
Fair enough.
We'll
but
see.
One of the beats that does happen is Hot Dog does come in to help her.
Which I knew was going to happen because, like, they planted that with the never leave your leader thing. So
yeah, and he doesn't. And
what a shock! I'm so surprised by this unforeseeable turn of events.
yeah, but it's like, oh, she's a good teacher. She taught them how to do a thing.
Well, except she herself also points out, I also told you not to disobey orders. So,
yeah. But anyways, this goes down. Adama, I also, again, speaking of Edward James Olmos, it's clear Edward James Olmos, Adama is very concerned, along with Lee, for Starbucks specifically. And you have to think about, like, shit, and he just told her all these things, and now she's in danger sort of shit. But anyways, we then cut to what we saw at the beginning of the episode, like Hot Dog and everyone gets away. The Cylons all get destroyed except for, Starbuck does get hit. She gets hit along with one other Cylon ship. So she and the Cylon ship go crashing down to the planet that they're nearby, and she ejects into the planet.
And we actually get a to be continued.
To be continued.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. So that is the end of the episode. Any other thoughts to say on all of that stuff?
Not really.
Alrighty then. Spoiler minute time. This is going to be an interesting one for spoiler minute, so we'll get to it. But yeah, spoiler minute time. So for the next 60 seconds, if you do not want spoilers for the rest of the series, please skip ahead just as Vera's going to do by taking off her headphones in real time. And I will talk spoilers for the next 60 seconds. Give me 60 seconds on the clock, Vera.
And I think I'm going to grab one of my birthday presents. And go!
All right, so one interesting thing that I just want to bring up, there's not a lot to talk about in terms of, like, future stuff with this episode, frankly, besides, like, oh, yay, Kat, she's going to have a fun relationship with Starbuck. However, there was in a recent podcast, I just want to call out the showrunner, Ronald D. Moore, did a podcast with Katie Sackhoff where he was asked about what it was Starbuck from the end of the series, and he sort of answered, and we'll talk about this more when we actually get there in the show, but I just want to call out that I did hear about it. I actually listened to the podcast, that his answer to that was, like, he didn't know. He didn't have a definitive answer to Starbuck. And oh my God, Vera put on a whole fucking thing. I will talk about that in a second, but regardless, you fucked me over, Vera. Fuck you. She did, but yeah, she did talk about that. I want to acknowledge that that was brought up in a podcast, and we will talk about it many, many months from now when we get to the finale, but I did want to acknowledge that discussion. I found it really interesting because I thought, like, it is, I actually kind of like it. Quick thoughts on it. I like his thoughts on it. Vera, fuck you. I like his thoughts on it when he does question whether it was a good idea or not. Fucking Vera ruined this. I hate you, Vera, because there was something really interesting that I wanted to talk about, and you fucked me over. Fuck you, Vera. Fuck you. So, listeners, the reason if I might have gotten very in the middle of that is Vera turned off her camera for a second, turned it back on, and is now wearing, what is this, a cow bikini?
Yeah.
That you wear? You prepped this. This wasn't like, oh, I'm going to put this on. You had this prepped.
Maybe.
Mm-hmm. He's wearing a cow bikini and cow ears and like a cow bow tie. Mm-hmm. Is that your birthday gift? Who was that from? A fan?
This was from one of my only fans.
Oh,
you should see the rest of it.
Yeah.
It does not fit properly in a very fun way.
I hate you so much. You look good in it, but I'm not going to give you the satisfaction of gratifying that because fuck you. You ruined a very interesting discussion.
You're welcome.
What'd you think of the episode, you bitch?
Weakest episode we've had so far.
I would agree with that. Yes. I was actually not looking for, like, when I saw this one coming up, I was like, I don't want to do this one, frankly. It's not terrible.
It's not horrible. Part of the reason it's rough is that it is a downgrade by the bar set by the other episodes of this show. Mm-hmm. So, like, in a vacuum, it's not awful. And even a lot of what it's doing are things that it makes sense for the show to do, but it's just doing them in clunkier fashions than I've come to expect from this show at this point. Just with how clunky the misunderstanding. Oh, I thought you already knew. Or like how muddled the time jumps with the flashback.
Contrived the death of the pilots are.
Yeah, and it's on paper, bullet pointed out, it's not doing anything bad or wrong. It's just the way that those bullet points are done is at a weaker level of writing than I've come to expect from this show.
Yes. That being said, the acting I do think is fantastic.
The acting is good, and that one scene between Adama and Starbuck was phenomenal. But yeah, this is on the whole the weakest episode of the show so far.
Yeah, I agree. But I'm trying to think if there's anything else I would add to it. No, not really. I tend to agree. I think that this is the one that I was dreading this season, and it's not as bad as I remember. I remember hating it, but I think I also just as a kid was very much like, it's an episode about relationships. I don't care. So I think I had that vibe going for it. Whereas now I'm that's less of a problem for me, but still not a great episode. So yeah. Yeah, I think that's really about all I got to say about it. It does lead, however, to an episode next week that I really do love. I have vivid memories of next week's episode. So
okay, then.
We'll get to that one when we get to it. Anything else to say, Vera?
Nah.
Alrighty, stuff time.
Stuff! If you want to find my stuff, you can look for Council of Geeks. Patreon pays the bills. YouTube has had some interesting topics lately. Recent topics will have included a look at transphobia and toxic parenting, and also a look at having franchises and IP move past problematic creators, and under what circumstances is that even possible, highlighting the continuation of Buffy that is currently moving forward. And there'll be Doctor Who stuff starting up soon at the time that you hear this. Then there's the Break Room of Geeks, which is where the rest of my reviews go, where I talk about whatever I have played, watched, read, or listened to lately. I am reviewing Daredevil Born Again. Hopefully it'll start getting better again. Episode 4 was not great. But I'm reviewing that. I'll review Andor when that starts coming out. You can also follow Council of Geeks on Blue Sky. And also in the Break Room of Geeks is where I am now streaming gaming, doing that on Wednesdays and Fridays. Don't know what I'll be playing by the time this comes out, because I'm just finishing up Tunic at time of recording, and I don't know what I'm going to play next. Now, that's the geeky stuff. If you're interested in the spicy stuff...
You can look for Vera Wild. Wild spelled W-Y-L-D-E. And on YouTube, I have started a series where I will be looking at porn video games, because they are a thing I enjoy playing, and I have not had a decent excuse to talk about them. So screw it. I'm going to do it anyways.
So I'm going to do it anyways.
I don't think it measures up to how much I threw you off, though.
It's true. It's true. I'm seeing a lot of cleavage right now. She's even holding it together. Anyways, listeners, you can find me at Jesse Dinder on YouTube, where I do video essay style stuff. I should have a new video essay. Stop, Vera. I hate you so much. Where I do video essay type of stuff. I should have a new video essay up right now. That is the second part of the video that I had up earlier this month. God damn it, Vera. Video I had up earlier this month about stories that white supremacy tells. This is Stories That Resist, so please check out that one. I will be able to announce a bunch of new projects that I am working on very, very soon. I've kind of alluded to them, but they are coming in the next few weeks, so if you want to follow me on Blue Sky, I'll be announcing that there and in other YouTube spaces, as well as my secondary channel called Jesse Dinder After Dark, where I do news, reviews, reactions. I'm also going to be reviewing Doctor Who and Daredevil, as well as Star Wars Andor that is coming out. So be on the lookout for all of that stuff. I am also on Patreon, that helps me pay my bills, and Nebula is also the streaming service that houses my movie Identities, which you can go check out and also buy the Blu-ray for, because that is out as well over on Nebula's store. I think that is everything that I have. Vera, anything else that you want to torture me with or bother me with or tease me with?
No, I think I'm good, actually.
You jerk. Well, with all of that said,
you're welcome.
Well, you're doing it for me, so it's fine. I still am the Dom, I guess. That's how that works, right?
No. No, it's not. And the fact that you think it is the cutest damn thing.
Well, I am glad this is not a video podcast this week. And with that said, I hope y'all live long and prosper.
Be seeing you.
I hate you so much.